So here to talk to us about this extremely entertaining and political film is Billy Clark. Hi, welcome, Billy. Can you tell us, like, as an Irish fan, how did you come across them and how do they speak to you?
Well, I'm only part Irish, but I have a really strong interest in both Irish traditional music and the Irish language, using it and learning more about it. Um, I have tried to curate my social media so that most of what I see is people who use the Irish language predominantly. So it was inevitable, though I'm not really a hip hop fan, it was inevitable eventually I'd come across them. Kind of every Irish speaker, Irish learner was talking about.
And I'm not an Irish learner, but I've come across them, of course, for their political views,
Yeah.
etc. They've been, causing a lot of havoc. So the film is a sort of fictional origin story. How much of it is true? I mean, the guy, for example, the guy who always wears the balaclava, Provi, he's actually a teacher, or was a teacher, wasn't it? There's some things that are actually true.
In lieu of an official biography, I've gleaned most of this from the interviews that they've done, and they've said that they don't want to exactly spell out what is true and what's not true, just to keep a bit of mystery, which I can understand. But there are some pretty interesting things, like you said, DJ Provi or JJ O'Doherty was a school teacher, and he was sacked for his involvement with Kneecap, so that's true. In the opening scene where Nisha is having his baptism in that secret place and the British helicopters find him and they think they found an RIA training camp, that's true. I think the whole getting their heads kicked in by the dissident Republican anti-drugs group isn't true, but they have said that they had death threats from dissident Republican groups more than they did from unionists. So it's loosely based on truth, but it's a mix, as you'd expect.
Yeah, it's a big thing in the film that RTE, the official Irish channel, banned them. Is that true, to your knowledge?
Yeah, Radio na Gaeltachta, which is a radio station that more or less only has Irish language content. I think they can't be on there, which I feel conflicted about because I really like Radio na Gaeltachta. Although that there've been some less hostile kind of interviews with them now on television, it's still not something you really hear about them on RTE, and there certainly was a ban. TG Ceathair, which is much better television, they have promoted Kneecap a fair bit.
There's a funny interview with them on the Late Late Show with Patrick Kielty, and I think that's been really spread around quite a lot. They were told beforehand, not to wear any Palestine badges, I understand, and so they all came zipped up, and then as soon as the live interview starts, they open their tops, and one of the guys probably has a Palestine football shirt on. So the film concentrates very much on the Irish language issue, but in interviews like that, they've also been very outspoken in their support for Palestine and calling themselves communists and socialists, etc. Do you think that's down to funding, perhaps? What's that they've, the film is sort of all about the language, really?
It might be. I mean, yeah, it has funding from the British Film Institute and Screen Northern Ireland and things like that, which perhaps limits them. I think, though, and obviously I don't think Palestine really comes up in the film, but I think they do well considering those constraints. Like, there are some political issues that they can address, and so given their image and given the accusations against them, obviously they have to try and challenge sectarianism in a principled way. And I think perhaps other than the chief of police, the characters in it who are from a unionist background have quite a positive portrayal. Even the scene where he steals the stick off the flute band and he's running away with it, you don't really feel the threat of that. That's just pure comedy. So I feel like they deal with sectarianism in quite a funny way. The character of Georgia, who I think is a very sympathetic character and is British, and you see her learning Irish at the end as well. Other political issues, I think, obviously drugs is a big one.
That's an interesting issue, isn't it, with the drugs, because There's a lot of drugs in the film. It reminded me a bit of Train Spotting. It's also reminiscent a little bit of Monty Python, and it's the radical Republicans against drug abuse, and there's also some other Republicans against drugs, etc. So they are taking the Mickey out of that one.
I was watching it, and it occurred to me, I think it was implied that a lot of the problems to do with drugs and the violence that stems from it is to do with its criminalisation and the over-policing of it. Most obvious in their songs, obviously their first single, Character, is nearly all about, it references other things, but it's nearly all about drugs. And then songs like Iviach Lina on their album that came out this year, they're making it pretty clear that they're not going to stop talking about it just because it upsets some people.
There's also a character, which is the father of one of the guys, is an old Republican fighter. You know, he's been in hiding for 10 years because of the operation. You know, which fucking operation is his ex-wife, still wife, asks him, you know. He basically set some cars on fire and stuff. So these guys are, you know, they're modern, young Republicans. They're clearly quite critical of the old methods, but they're still in favor, I guess, of Irish unification. How is that political issue being discussed?
So the phrase they're brought up with is every word spoken in Irish is a bullet for Irish freedom. It's a great saying. But they're saying, I think, you know, enough bullets have been fired on the issue, and enough metaphorical bullets as well. Not every use of the Irish language, not every promotion of Irish culture needs to be political. It needs, for it to be a living language, it needs to be used for everything, not just for political statements and so on. So I think with their music, but also with this film, and I think that there's an increase in acknowledgement that whatever form the United Ireland is going to take, it's going to need to have a place for unionists or people from a unionist background to fit into that. They're not all going to go back to Scotland, so you know, it's going to have to take on some form that benefits. That benefits all the cultures of Ireland, and I think that's a lot easier. Although they do have you know, the tricolour balaclava and things like that, and a lot of the stuff that they rap about, you wouldn't necessarily assume it.
It is still a demand, a united Ireland, get the British out, get the troops out, you know, that they make a big thing, and, you know, he's showing his ass with it, you know, on in concerts, I'd say Brits out. But they clarify later, we don't mean you, you know, I don't mean you, my girlfriend, you know, you're British, but, you know, in Northern Ireland, I don't mean you, I mean the British state out of Ireland.
It reminds me a little bit, I was in Belfast recently, and when there's this amazing, massive mural, a very friendly looking mural really, which says Fáilte go bhfuil Felliste here, welcome to West Belfast, and then you go around the corner and there's loads more. But it says like PSNI, Police Service of Northern Ireland, not welcome here, because they've had a couple of murals put up, Kneecap have, and during those they've said and asked all the people there to agree with them, whichever side of the peace war you're on, we're both we're all working class, we're all suffering under the same system.
So what kind of communists then are they, to your knowledge? Have they talked about that a bit?
I think you tend to find with musicians and artists in general, they are less likely to be organised as communists than other people. This is mostly based on the late interview where they said, we support a workers' revolution, not one based on a God that might not exist, not one based on being Catholic or Protestant or something like that. And I think that's the important point really is, I agree with obviously support for United Ireland, but it's not the case that any old United Ireland will do. It won't automatically improve the strength and the position of the working class. I think in the British context, you could see it as obviously any communist programme should call for the abolition of the monarchy and the House of Lords, but that's not going to automatically be a gain for the working class. There are, you know, some places that are republics that you certainly wouldn't want to live. I wouldn't be surprised if they never kind of attach themselves to a particular program or party, but I'm happy that they have at least said they support a workers' revolution above all else.
Absolutely, and it gives the idea of communism a new impetus, doesn't it? If young cool rappers use words like that and talk about workers' revolution, that can only be good for us, and it certainly got them onto our radar and into the pages of the Guardian, etc. So they're all celebrating them, which is cool. Thank you very much, Billy. That was really interesting. Everybody, if you got a chance to see the film, please do. I'm sure it's going to come out online sometime as well. But it is in a lot of cinemas, which actually surprised me. It is in a lot of mainstream cinemas still this week and probably next week. So go and watch it if you have a chance. Thank you, Billy.